I'd like to welcome everybody to the Wall Street Journal Towers Watson reception. Delighted to have you join us tonight. I'm Mark Mactas. I'm the President and Chief Operating Officer of Towers Watson. Towers Watson is a brand new company. It was launched January 1st of this year. Came about by a merger of Towers Parent and Watson Wyatt. We're now a company of 14,000 people and over $3 billion in revenue around the globe. And we're delighted to have you join us tonight. So, Alan?
Great, thank you. Let me say, first of all, thank you all for coming. It's great to have you here. I am not here to impart knowledge tonight. I come to Davos to listen. I want to tell you a little bit about what I've heard over the last couple of days, but then get some sense of from you of what you've heard, because I find Davos is very much like a Rorschach test, and everyone reads something different into it. What I've heard is that we are in an inflection point in the global economy, that it is an inflection point pretty much unlike anything that we have ever experienced in the past, in large part because the developed countries, while they are recovering, most everyone I've talked to or heard speak on this subject thinks the recovery is going to be long and slow and very unsatisfying. And that's for two obvious reasons. One is the extraordinary debt loads that the developed countries have taken on themselves over the course of the last few years. And two is because the banking system is a mess, and you need a well-functioning banking system in order to have really satisfying economic growth. And no one seems to think that we're going to get out of that anytime soon.
Well, first of all, for those of you who don't know me or Alan well, he and I used to know each other from our Washington days. We have children the same age, our children were going to the same school, and we were at the time as old media as we could have been. So I'm sure neither of us ever expected to be where we are now, with Alan editing Wall Street Journal Online and editing the Huffington Post. So it shows that you can deal with disruptive innovation. You accept it rather than fight it. And I think that's one of the most encouraging things here, is what's happening with innovation and new technologies and how that could be a great sort of engine for growth. And there isn't enough of that conversation in the United States. But I agree with you that obviously things are much better than they were last year in terms of the mood, but there are also some incredible tensions. I mean, today, for example, at the Newsweek lunch, Lali Weymouth at her table had on one side the president of Israel, Shimon Peres, and on the other side the president of the head of the Palestinian Authority. And that was very nice compared to having also at her table the president of Goldman Sachs and Barney Frank. So there are some very deep tensions in terms of those like Paul Volcker and myself, who think there should be some real banking reform, especially ending those banks that are too big to fail and pose a systemic risk, and those who think that, leave us the way we are and everything will be fine.
This time last year, everyone seemed to be very agreed on we need totally unified, coordinated international action on banking and financial reform. And this year that seems to have totally dissipated, with one plan in the US, President Sarkozy saying another thing. I'm from the UK. We have our regulator sort of trying to come up with this idea that the way they would cure it is having an independent body which would step in when they thought that lending was getting too hot or the market was getting too hot. They would have some kind of thermostat which would say, okay, it's getting too hot, we're now going to ration lending, which seems to indicate that, even in domestic lending, for mortgage lending, things like that, saying, seems to have a quasi-governmental body telling you what the value of a house is, which seems to be just about as far as you could move away from market economics, and is, from a UK perspective, bring things back to sort of 1970s sort of bank lending. And I think there seems to be a tension between trying to get rid of lending is bad, and credit is bad, whatever, but it creates great social mobility. No one wants to go back to serfdom and not being able to do all those sort of things. And there seems to be much less cohesion this year, and everyone seems to have gone in lots of different directions. And I think there's, I suppose, misery loves company, which was last year's story, and this year it's slightly less miserable, and the company doesn't seem so important.
Somehow the notion of executive compensation has reared its head, and these are not exclusively sessions on executive compensation. There are sessions on sustainable development and what I mentioned that bankers get paid too much is almost the laughed rejoinder of an overlong comment. And I'm just wondering if other people have heard that and what do we make of it?